Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schoology Exchange. I'm Adam Larson, and I have the privilege of being your host for today's Schoology webinar. Also joining us is Temple ISD. We'll get a chance to hear from them today. But while we're waiting for others to join, I'm going to launch a poll. The purpose of the poll is to let us know a little bit about you and help us to start the conversation. The poll specifically for today is kind of your understanding of how a learning management system or when a learning management system is necessary. There's a couple of options that you can choose from the selections. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll, and again, I'll be back on in 2 minutes. Okay, so it looks like we have more people joining. That's great. We're going to go ahead and share out this poll so you guys can see the results. And everyone got the correct answer. Yes, there was a correct answer for this one. Whether you're personalizing your learning or blending your learning or doing a one-to-one device program, whether it's a traditional one-to-one or bring your own device, or even just communication collaboration, all those things are really benefited from a learning management system. Go ahead and give yourselves a pat on the back, and then we're going to go ahead and move forward with the rest of our webinar. So for those of you just joining, welcome to Schoology Exchange. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Adam Larson, and I'm the Director of Educational Strategy here at Schoology. And joining me are three very important leaders in education. We have Luann Hughes, Director of Technology for Temple ISD, and also Jessica Mays and Jacki Wright, who are both Instructional Technology Specialists in Temple ISD. We'll get a chance to hear from them in a moment, but I wanted to give you some context about this particular webinar. Our purpose in providing Schoology Exchanges is really threefold. We want for stories to be shared. We're wanting to have conversations, and we want to make connections. Schoology is always desired to make a difference in education, besides just providing our award-winning learning management system, of course. So, sorry for the shameful plug there. We want to highlight the great things happening in education and the foundational ideas behind them to spread. Our presenters today have an insightful story to share. We've connected with you because of the benefit that it could provide. Let's have some great conversation today that will help you move forward as a district. Towards the end of the webinar, we also hope to make a connection with you to talk more about your needs and what we can do to help. Today's exchange is going to focus on the path a school or district takes that leads them to an LMS. We've seen this be an ever-growing conversation among educational leaders and are thankful that the team from Temple ISD has joined us today to really share their experience. As far as the flow of the webinar, or the basic formula of how we like to conduct these opportunities, we'll start with Temple ISD. We'll hear more about the district and what each of our presenters are doing. Next, we'll look at how Schoology is making an impact in the district's educational fabric and possibly share some user stories. Then with those two added up, we'll be able to discuss some takeaways that they've learned and are willing to share. And during that time, we'll open up the webinar for questions from you, the audience. In fact, if you have questions, feel free to enter them into the chat window so you don't forget them, and I can ask them towards the end, and possibly I'll have a chance to use them as we're talking too. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Temple ISD, are you there? Are you with me? Let's go ahead and turn on my webcam. I want to make sure that my webcam's up. Okay, there's Luann. Great. And are we all unmuted, just to make sure we're all good?
Yes, hi y'all.
Perfect. Hey, I love the y'all. I love that. First off, I am actually from Texas. I'm in Kansas City. I'm in Kansas City today. We have our leaders here are also from Texas, so it's good to be able to talk with you guys today. So first off, what I really want to do is I really want to kind of talk about your roles in the district. So Luann, why don't we start with you, and then we can move over to Jessica and Jackie. Can you tell me a little bit about your role and what it is that you do there in Temple?
I am the Director of Technology. We're a school district of about 8,600 students, 13 campuses. So we don't have any management levels beyond director here because of just the size of our district. There's 16 folks in our department. And I live on the curriculum instruction side of the house. I report to an assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction, which is fairly unusual, I think, in a school district. Not so much so in a school district this side. It's not unusual to either report either curriculum or on the maintenance and operations side. But my background is in education, so that's where we are.
Okay, great. What about you, Jessica and Jackie? We'll start with Jessica.
So we both actually share the same role, so maybe we'll switch on and off describing it. We're instructional technology specialists, and we operate at the district level, but we mainly focus our efforts here at our high school.
Great. And the high school is Temple High School?
Yes, Temple High School.
Perfect. Temple ISD and Temple High School. Great. So how did you guys find well, first off, Luann, I just want to comment on something. I agree with you. Now, is there an IT department as well within the district, or are you the IT department and the instructional side of the technology, both?
I'm over both.
Wow, okay. So basically you have a big responsibility.
We have 16 total in the department.
Okay, wow. And then you came from an educational background, actually?
Yes,
Awesome.
I did. I taught for 25 years.
Awesome. Well, it's always powerful to have someone that actually has that experience being in your role that helps knows the needs of teachers and help make decisions that are going to benefit them. That's great. And what about you, Jackie and Jessica? How did you guys find yourself in that kind of position?
So Jessica and I both taught here at Temple High School for several years. Collectively, I was a teacher for 10 years, and Jessica was a teacher for 14 years prior to becoming an ITS. And so that was really helpful to be able to have walked in the teacher's shoes to understand and know how we can best help them. At the high school, we have a support role from some of our high school teachers. There are technology liaisons. So they kind of, they're essentially the middleman between their department and technology. So if there's any issues that they have, they can help. And Jessica and I were previously liaisons for the high school. So they kind of got us interested in technology, but we love helping teachers and we love helping kids. So it was kind of the perfect match. We love it.
Yeah, well, I am partial to instructional technology specialist. I myself was one for about 7 years, so I really am appreciative of all that you do. I know that you guys are the boots on the ground in a lot of ways, and really appreciate you being on and joining our conversation. Now, Luann, kind of go back to you. What's kind of the typical day look like? So, kind of going through, just pulling up some of my points here. Kind of heard a little bit about your backstory, but what's a typical day look like for you? What are the kind of things that you find coming across your plate that you're having to deal with?
Well, because I'm at the administrative level, I'm responsible for the budgets, E-rate, policies, procedures, making sure that that personnel are where they need to be, that kind of thing, and planning. Those are my primary roles, but we do spend up because we really only had 3 instructional technology specialists a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and because of some funding we were able to add 2 more. So that department has really taken off in this past year and a half. So I do spend quite a bit of time working with them also, because if you don't have that piece right, doesn't matter what you buy, they've got to be able. Teachers have to be able to use it. So
when did you guys as a district kind of make that choice, right? Because I work with a lot of districts around the country, and I say the term technology specialist and they've heard of it, but they don't have it. Like what was the kind of the power behind that, or the decision behind it?
This is one of Jessica's favorite stories that I tell.
Okay.
I was sitting in a meeting with the superintendent, and she looked over at me. She said, well, technology is not even a blip on the radar in Temple. She said, we're going to have to change that. And she said, I know you told me it's going to cost a lot of money. Go make a plan. So we went and made a plan for student devices, focusing on student technology. And because of the tax ratification election, have been able to infuse $1 million a year in a refresh schedule. And part of that was for me to say, I can't do it with the people I have. So we added 2 more instructional technology specialists. We also added a student device specialist, someone who could concentrate on those, because we've increased our count by about 5,000 over the past 3 years. So we had to have personnel to match that.
So you also mentioned something here. So you have the kind of the roles of technology specialists at campuses that are helping out with just technology in general. One of those technology initiatives, you mentioned this briefly, was a device rollout of some sort?
Yes, we have and I may let Jackie and Jessica speak to the high school. We did a one-to-one initiative at the high school that was to be rolled out over 4 years. Wow. 2 years ago, we were going to give 9th graders, and we did. We gave 9th graders Chromebooks that they keep with them their whole high school career, and if they graduate from Temple High School, they can take that device with them. So the intent was to do that over 4 years. But prior to that original rollout, we had put carts out the spring before so that the teachers could get used to it. Google was brand new to us at that point. Chromebooks were certainly brand new to us. So we got everybody acclimated to those that spring. So by last year, we really had enough in the carts to go ahead and go full one-to-one 2 years early. Okay. So we sped that timeline up. So we are a full one-to-one implementation at the high school now. We have a 2-to-1, so we have a cart for every 2 classrooms at middle school, and then we have 13 devices per room at elementary.
Wow. Okay. So
we actually finish out K1 this next year.
Gotcha. So you have a lot of different device. I mean, compared to a lot of different districts out there in the country, you actually have a very rich technology environment for your classrooms. That's amazing. Awesome.
It's getting there.
Yeah, it always is, right? It's always a process. And I think later on I've heard some great things about what your district was actually representing in TCA about some of your help desk stuff. And maybe towards the end, we can kind of circle back to that. So for those of you watching at home, make sure you stick around for that at the end. We'll talk more about it. Now, Jessica and Jackie, you guys were kind of singled out there. Did she tell the story right? Was there anything else that you wanted to share about that?
She told a great story. Yes.
Okay. Well done. You passed. Now, in terms of your roles at the campus level, Jessica and Jackie, like how were you actually teaching when some of this technology was being rolled out, or?
Yes, we were in the classroom whenever we were in the cart scenario. So 2 teachers would share a cart. So you could either divide it up or you could have the whole cart that day. Depends how you worked it out with your teacher that you were sharing with. But we were both in the classroom teaching core subjects, tested subjects. And so it was actually really great to be able to get to use those devices prior to going one-to-one, or even starting that implementation, that we were able to use that spring semester kind of to get our feet wet.
Absolutely. It's also interesting because we've been in the district long enough to have known a time when technology was really a teacher's tool, and then we transitioned to the BYOD, and then the 2-to-1, and then the 1-to-1. So it was really great for us to have that foundational understanding, really, so we can help districts when they visit with us about how they're going to begin their 1-to-1 implementation. It's really such a great thing that we rolled it out gradually, and so there wasn't just this device shock that so many districts we know of seem to have. So
great planning on our director's part. Like truly, I mean, they thought that out.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. So a couple of things that came up too. You guys mentioned that you use Google in the district, because I know that's a kind of question that people always like to ask you. Microsoft or Google, or so you guys are using Google?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We are. Honestly, either platform works fine. We just happened to, and it was a toss-up. We just happened to start with Google, and it's been a great solution for us. We all the instructional technology specialists are certified Google trainers, and we've made some pretty heavy investments on that side of things, but it's been great. The support we get from Google's been great. The devices have been great. The platform's been great. Works great with Schoology. So.
Gotcha. Good. Well, we're going to get there too, talking about how Schoology works great. I always love to hear that. Now, with the devices themselves, we have some questions coming in. Like, so you guys chose Chromebooks. Did you have an extensive kind of process that you went through to find the devices and select them, or?
We did. We called it a petting zoo. I had a cart full of all kinds of devices that we all took out and everybody looked at and played with and did different things. Because at that point, we were trying to decide, do we want a tablet? Do we want, do we want to go which direction? Whatever. But the Chromebooks were such a simple interface to use, so easy to manage. That was it. It became the device that made the most sense for us. We were already Windows Shop, already had AD. There was an integration to that, so that made it fairly simple. And this was, 4 years ago. So I would say on the Apple side of things, the management was always a concern. I think that's gotten a lot better. And we're actually doing iPad minis at K1 this next year. But
okay. So now you also mentioned too, because the question was coming up about your device specialists. So Jessica and Jacki are the instructional technology specialists. You also have device specialists. They might also, would another name be like a repair specialist or something like, are they kind of the break fix kind of people, or?
I'm gonna let y'all have that one in just 2 seconds, if that's okay. His background is certainly network and device repair. He also is a certified teacher. We just got really lucky on that piece of that.
Oh, wow.
His role has certainly evolved as time has gone on. I'm going to let Jacki and Jessica speak to that because, and I do want to say, just because we have Jacki and Jessica at the high school, we only have 3 other instructional technology specialists, and they all share schools. We really purposefully put 2 at the high school. One, it has 2,000 students, but they're the one that are 1-to-1, and that's the one that takes so much time and energy. So I wish I had one at every campus. I don't, but just be aware that we don't have all that going for us there. So. And
also, I also will say real quick, this is always a funny thing about Texas. She just passingly said she has 2,000 students in her high school. That's a very large high school across the country. So wow, that's a lot. That's a big initiative. Some districts aren't even that large. That's impressive to hear about. Sorry, Jessica and Jacki, go ahead.
So now, if y'all want to talk about your team, Jacki and Jessica, that you all have it with Judy and RJ, that'd be great.
Okay, so we have a classroom here that's been converted into our technology hub or center of the school. We call it the Tech Spot. And housed here, Jacki and I work out of this office 4 days a week, and then Fridays report to their district office. But we also have our campus technician and our device specialist. So Judy and RJ also work with us here. And it's really interesting how their roles have evolved over the past couple of years, and that at first we were very clearly assigned roles and lanes, and we pretty much stayed in them, well, for the first 6 weeks. And then everybody just sort of joined in and started learning everyone's roles, because it really does have to be, it's a family that you work with, of course, but in a family, everybody has to pick up and help each other out when times are, when time calls. And so RJ and Judy have stepped into instructional roles sometimes. So if a teacher has a question or wants to know how to maybe use an app or what the purpose might be, it's not unusual for them to jump in and say, this is how I would use it with students, which is great for RJ because he's been a classroom teacher. Judy never has been a teacher. And so I think that we've gained some strength by the four together. Jacki and I attempt to repair devices. We're not as efficient as others.
We pretty much told them they'll take care of the repairs.
Right.
Sadly. But it's been extremely helpful to us, because sometimes if something, maybe an application is not working perfectly, to us we're like, oh my gosh, what is it? Well, Judy and RJ can throw out several possibilities that we can help troubleshoot, like on the fly, and then be able to not only help that teacher but all of our teachers and our students. So it's a great.
RJ's been very instrumental in helping the students learn how to repair, which we would not have had if we hadn't had him. So
yeah, awesome. And that's again is part of the story that I'd love to talk more about towards the end. I think that's really neat to hear some of the things that you've been showcasing at TCA and in districts around Texas. A question for you, Luann, and I know that you kind of went into this briefly, but especially with Jessica and Jacki talking about the roles of people on the campus and how kind of the roles always kind of mesh together, whether it's technology or curriculum or instruction. Eric is asking a question, and Eric, I don't want to butcher your question, but trying to put it in context. How it is unusual in sort of maybe the larger districts that have more compartmentalized kind of departments with here's curriculum people here, here's technology people over here, and then never shall the two meet sometimes. Your district, you've mentioned it's smaller, has really combined a lot of that. And the question was, how effective has that been? Have you found there being difficulties with that, or any thoughts about it?
We have not, because I have, for the last probably 8 to 10 years, reported to the curriculum and instruction department. So what that does, though, is that person, whoever is my boss, has to understand enough about the nuts and bolts of how it all works. And they have to trust that I know what I'm talking about too. So, because that's not necessarily their forte, the maintenance and operations of things. So, and then the other thing is you have to have a staff, a technical staff that is very solid and can work a lot on their own. They don't have, they probably don't have the same direction that if I were truly just technical, that I would probably take more of that role, but they do more of that. There's some ways to bridge that, though, even in a large district, I think, as long as there's lots of coordination of the directors meeting together early and getting those expectations across. That's where an instructional technology specialist is so important, because they have to listen to what people say they want, and then they have to translate to the technical people what that really means, and that's hard.
Gotcha. Yeah. And something too, I just want to mention about Temple ISD for those of you listening. They have actually done a lot of things, and they're creating a name for themselves in Texas. I know just recently they were in Houston ISD, asked to kind of come and share some of their ideas. So again, I just want to say thank you again to Temple ISD for joining us today and sharing some of these things. There's a couple other questions that I want to get to, but I really want to move forward just to make sure that we have time. And that really is getting into the kind of the Schoology portion of things. So we've talked a little bit about you. It's exciting to hear all the things that are happening. Tell me a little bit about Schoology. So, this is a Schoology webinar. So where does Schoology kind of fit in? And I'm going to kind of talk about the role. Like, what's the role of Schoology in your district right now?
So we knew that when we went to a one-to-one, we knew. I felt like we had to have some sort of an LMS, that it was not going to be beneficial to move to a one-to-one scenario without that. We've had a large push to get all of our resources online, including textbooks, and I've had great support from the secondary educational director on getting textbooks. Matter of fact, I have to slow her down. Say, wait, we're not ready for those resources yet. We don't have devices in place or whatever, but we needed a container that was easy to use to contain all those things and to create that. And so we started looking at different solutions. And then about that same time, our Region Service Center, which there's 88 districts in Region 12, was also looking at that. So we worked with them in a consortium to select our LMS.
Okay. That's interesting. So one of the questions that Bob asked earlier on, and I'm going to get to your question now, Bob. So was it the chicken or the egg? Was it the devices that kind of came first, and then the learning management system, or was it the learning management system or the devices? Like, which came first for your district?
They actually appeared close to the same time in a one-to-one scenario. Now, the devices were there in a two-to-one scenario, and we still have two-to-one, and we're using Google Classroom for middle school at this point and for elementary. But as soon as it went to one-to-one, it was just almost imperative. When we went to one-to-one, we had an LMS in place, so they had something to get to their resources with.
Interesting. Have Jessica and Jackie, how have you seen it kind of playing out at the Temple High School where you guys have been working at?
So initially, moving to a one-to-one was a little bit of a challenge for teachers because they really didn't understand what a digital environment would look like, and so the organization of it and just the day-to-day routine was just I don't want to say chaotic, but it definitely did disrupt what their practices were. And so Schoology coming to Temple was such a blessing. We really did have our devices first and then Schoology, but they really did run pretty close together. But it really did help our teachers better understand what technology and instruction together should mean and what it can look like.
Mm-hmm. And we have seen this is our first year with Schoology, and our teachers, I promise you, though, there have been so many surprises with this, because some teachers who just dread using technology are now like the cheerleaders for Schoology. I mean, they love it. They love the organization of it. They love that it helps them as much as it helps the students with the classes. And so having Schoology and letting the teachers use it day to day, and I mean, it's campus wide. I mean, you can go, our athletic trainer uses it, our art teacher uses it. I mean, people you wouldn't necessarily expect to use, and I'm sorry, there's a class next door. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but they're getting a little, they're preparing for their one-act play. So there's some strange noises.
You guys are in the trenches. We totally understand that. You got educators watching.
Yeah, it's great fun. So it's not just core teachers that are using it, though. That's what we love. Like, it's, like we said, our athletic trainer uses it the way that it makes sense for her. And so everybody kind of does that, and everybody really appreciates how, like Jessica said, it just makes sense. We have the devices, the students have the devices. It really helps us. And Jessica and I have started to move our professional development all on Schoology. Not all on. We do a blended model. Some face-to-face, some online. But our teachers really like it because we're modeling for them the ways they can use it.
And so right now, we are in the phases of beginning to move into a blended learning environment. And so Schoology is so instrumental in that. We don't know how it could be accomplished really without it. But like Jackie mentioned, we are able to model through our professional development how teachers could use that. Because again, one-to-one is a scary concept for teachers. A blended learning environment, oh my goodness, even worse. But we really feel like they can move into it more confidently now with Schoology. So So that's very reassuring
so
to
thank
them.
you.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and actually fun too, here's another plug. Scott Smith is also on the line, and maybe Scott can share out a link to a webinar that we actually recently gave on how Schoology can transform your professional development. For those of you who are more interested in that topic, I know that could be something that could be interesting for you to look at. Especially, I totally agree with you, Jessica and Jackie, the ability to really model blended learning to teachers using the very technology that you're asking them to use. I think that's wonderful. To talk a little bit about the backstory, and let me just make sure I'm getting to some of the questions. First off, I just wanted to say something. Brian is mentioning that, the whole, which comes first, learning management system or devices. He agreed with you guys. In his situation, he saw both of them happen concurrently. Both of those kind of one causing the other need to happen. So that's definitely not unheard of. And we're going to talk more about some of the other questions that are coming up. But before we do that, can you tell me a little bit about the backstory? And this is specifically kind of at the high school there. So Jackie and Jessica, were they currently using Google Classrooms and they transitioned into Schoology, or was it, how did that work?
So we would say probably half of our teachers on campus were using Google Classroom, and the others were not. They were just using Google Drive as their makeshift LMS.
Yeah.
And so some were familiar, some totally new to the concept of an LMS.
Interesting.
And we didn't stop them. Some of them used Edmodo, or they built their own website. So we didn't disallow anything, but we didn't have a district push for anything either at that point.
Gotcha.
So.
It's interesting, I think when it comes to a lot of the different learning management systems, and sorry if I'm putting on a little bit of a sales hat here, we've seen districts who have moved forward with other platforms where, it's the only way to get users to stop using the Edmodos or the Google Classrooms and things like that is to have mandates. And one of the things that we've really seen the benefit of is teachers desiring to be a part of it. And I know Jessica and Jackie, you guys mentioned that before about they're excited. Those teachers that you never thought would be like champions end up like being heroes of the initiative. I remember, to give you a little bit of background of my story for those listening, I was an instructional specialist as well at a campus. And I remember one of the strongest users that we always had was a cosmetology teacher. I know more about hairdos than I should probably ever know, because I helped her write up quizzes and things online. So yeah, if there are certain groups that you would tend to overlook when it comes to technology initiatives, those are possibly some of your strongest ones, whether it's welding class or hair class or whatever it is you're doing.
Well, I know one of the art teachers was talking about doing portfolios.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't even gone.
So were there anything, so moving on to kind of the day in the life now, so what does a typical day with Schoology look like in these classrooms? Like, how would you kind of describe that for these teachers?
I think that, of course, every classroom has a different set of routines, but what we have seen over and over again is it's the students sit down, they open their Chromebooks, and the teachers don't even have to say anymore, go to Schoology. And the students are using it in their classrooms for a variety of reasons. For a communication tool, we're seeing some really great returns in that communication piece, because those students who sat silently before now have a voice, because they don't have to have that face-to-face interaction that might intimidate them. Not that our teachers are intimidating, but some students are just shy. So that communication is a huge piece there. They really, it's interesting because our teachers and students both alike will agree that there's no excuse for not learning now. You can't say I've lost it or I didn't receive it or anything like that. Assignments are there. Teachers are able to share out their notes a lot easier. And it's great because that's what our teachers began with is, oh, great, I can put my notes out there. Mm-hmm. They won't lose them. I can give them an assignment and they can complete it. Mm-hmm. But they're moving away from those antiquated practices. And so now we're seeing more creation, which is really exciting, and more collaboration. You get a group of 30 kids in a room, and if you ask them to collaborate, well, they'll collaborate on lots of things except for what they're supposed to be doing. And so they're using the discussions and really getting some meaningful feedback from those. So I guess I've kind of gone all over the place, but it's really exciting to see, just really without us pushing any sort of a change instructionally on the teachers, how they've transformed their teaching and learning practices. That's a huge win.
Just made sense for them. And the students really appreciate it. I know we've heard from several students, whether it's they're having to be out for an extended time due to an illness or a surgery, or maybe they're just extremely involved in extracurricular activities. They love that they have Schoology there because their teacher will push that assignment out. They're able to look at it, take a look at it, and if they have any questions, they can message that teacher within Schoology. So it's a nice, safe environment for them, and the student doesn't necessarily miss instruction. Like if they've got questions, they can ask that teacher. Sure, they miss being in class that day, but for the most part, they can keep on keeping on.
And it's exciting for the kids and for the teachers. To some extent, it's too exciting for the teachers. They're so enthused by what the students are returning that they're starting to develop more, I guess, more assignments. And so instead of just taking a class, like one English course, they're really taking an English course and a half. The workload has increased, which is okay as long as it's manageable by our students. But several students have said, I have never worked so hard in my life. I've never worked so much in my life. And even our parents are calling us and coming by the tech spot, and they say, so my kids have homework this year? And we said, oh, okay, thinking that they're about to attack us. But they're actually very grateful. They're thankful because they see their students doing this work, and they're able to engage with them, and they feel like, I think maybe back in the good old days when homework was just an expectation, a daily routine, we've kind of phased out of that. Well, we're phasing back in, and the parents are able to relate to that. And that, to them, I think creates more affirmation that what's going on in the classroom is what should be going on.
So actually, two questions from that. The first one is actually was from Brian, was talking about parents, which you kind of mentioned. When did you bring parents, are parents officially on board? Are they users in the system, or are they kind of just overseeing their student accounts? Could you talk about that for a second?
Okay, so Luann was very thoughtful in this part of it, because when we were setting up the management piece of it, you could define certain roles, and so there was a discussion about what we allow the parents to see, and at the moment we don't. Parents, like if they want to see what their child's doing in Schoology, they have their child show them. So it's turned off for parents at the moment, and that truly is to give teachers time to get comfortable with it.
Yep.
We don't want those teachers that are comfortable with technology and those go-getters with anything new to kind of outshine those teachers that are just like, they want to do it, they are just learning, it just might take them a little bit longer. So we're using this year purposefully to get the teachers comfortable using it before we allow parents to have access to it. And I think that was a very thoughtful part on Luann. Like whenever she was setting that up, she goes, we probably should wait just a little bit. And I think that
we have a parent portal in our grade book that we really want parents to use, because that's where the official grades are, that's where the official records are. And if we're going to roll out the parent piece of it, we've got to do it very purposefully so parents understand the difference of what they're looking at.
Yeah. Well, I really like your point too, Jessica and Jackie, just the whole idea that if we're starting off the first year, teachers are already hesitant to get out there and make mistakes in front of students. The minute you now have this available to parents, it raises the stakes. So I think it allows people to move forward, but yet still encourage, hey, parents, there is homework. Sit down with your student, check out what's going on, and get engaged with the process, because now it's available. So I think that's a great way to go about it. The second question about what you said, though, did you mention that parents are coming to a tech spot, did you say?
Oh, yes. So
what's the tech spot?
our Tech Spot is our technology center here at the high school. And it's a place for students to come if they need assistance. Teachers will bring their entire class in if they're teaching a tech-heavy lesson and they feel like they need, backup. We're here to help out with that. We host PD here as well. It's been a really great place. But we also then will welcome families. If they have some questions or concerns or want to know more, they come in and we'll visit with them. And for some, we even do some tutoring. So here's Google and here's Schoology, and this is what your students are able to do. Especially
and not able to do.
And and especially with our struggling students. I think that's the good thing, because the parents really do feel like, I hate to say it, in our district, some of our parents just are not equipped to help their students academically, but just knowing what the resources that their students have available to them is very reassuring to them.
Interesting.
So, we're a 7% free and reduced lunch district. So for many of our families, this is the first device other than a cell phone that's been available for that family to even experience. So it's been a surprise to me how many parents, Jackie and Jessica, have helped along the way.
Yeah, it's some of these stories. If we had more time, I would love to talk about the hand-holding session of a class actually coming to you and teaching while you're there. I think that's awesome. But I do want to get to some of the questions that are coming from our audience, and this goes to you, Luann. And again, thank you, Brian, for asking it. So how does it really work at the district level, kind of providing vision of Schoology usage? I mean, there's so much things happening at the campus level, right? Things that they're kind of, having their own ideas and thoughts, teachers in the classroom specifically. How are you as a district kind of helping to cast that vision as well? And, are there future plans of what's going to happen? Or
So from a district perspective, that the curriculum side of it didn't come from me. When all this was discussed with high school staff, it came from the assistant superintendent of curriculum.
Okay.
He told it was going to happen, and then I worked very directly with the executive director of secondary education, and then the two of us, after we've agreed on where we're going to be, we work very closely with the high school principal, because if you don't have them in place, you can't go around any of that to get really the buy-in. And from that, really, the secondary director has allowed Jackie and Jessica to have a lot of days of training available to help them get, so days that would be curriculum days that teachers are required to come. Jackie and Jessica have been very instrumental in that training. So.
Well, so to kind of read into the situation, it really sounds like at the district level, you guys are clearing the pathway to make them successful, right? Whether it's providing days, getting the tools in place, providing that support that's going to be needed. I think we need to have more of that happening. Frankly, kudos to you guys for that, where districts are really understanding what's happening at the campus level and allowing campuses to move forward and making sure that there's no obstacles in the way of that. Awesome.
In reality, we wouldn't have moved forward without them. We would not have pushed, if I didn't have the okay of all those people, there wasn't any point in moving it forward.
Yeah. Okay, so we have about 18 minutes left or so in this presentation, so I do want to move on to the next kind of the takeaways. So we talked a little bit about Temple ISD, we talked a little bit about Schoology and how it's being used. The next kind of area to kind of sum things up and start winding ourselves down is really the Pier Insights. What would be kind of two suggestions or two successes that you guys really point to? And you can even, since there's three of you, you might each take one. Maybe one benefit that you really see in Schoology from your perspective. And I'll start with Luann. How about we start with Luann?
I was going to say, I'm trying to think which I'm going to pick. I'm going to say ease of use and communication. So I got two of them, sorry.
Oh, nice. So you've really seen the ease of use. And
it was very easy to set up with our student management system, which, oh my goodness, you don't always run into. That was great. And then the very first thing I heard everybody, even people who went, oh, we're having to do all this stuff. I said, well, is there anything you like about it? Communication. And they love the communication piece of it, how quickly you can communicate with students. So,
awesome.
All right, now, Jacki, Jessica.
You guys aren't off the hook, even though your boss said gave 2.
And just to expand on that communication piece, it's not just the communication that we appreciate between the student and the teacher, but also that as a campus, we can communicate. We send out our morning announcements through Schoology every day. So yeah, it's right on the intercom at the very beginning of the school day, but not all of our students get to school first period. So just in case there's anything important, we put that out in Schoology, and so it goes campus-wide. We love that aspect of it. We love, well, Jessica was just talking about the graduation, like there's so many details that go into that. So we like the groups that you can create within Schoology. So it's not just the classroom.
We also, here at the district, we provide leveled technology training. And what that really means is that teachers, when they attend a technology session, attend based on their proficiency or their comfort level. So beginner, intermediate, advanced. With Schoology, it's so easy to provide that sort of training. And I like the fact that there's something for every teacher, regardless of really where they are. If you just want to start at that very basic level, there's some very easy pieces, a communication tool, or sending out information. And then you can advance and get even more involved. And so I really appreciate that no teacher feels overwhelmed, because you can bite off as much of that cookie as you want to eat at that time. Okay, so it's time for dessert, actually.
Great. And Scott was making a good point too, with like even your example, Jacki, or I'm sorry, Jessica, about the like saying, here's students who get in late and don't get a chance to hear the announcements over the loudspeaker. That's super common, especially for those with late arrival and stuff like that. I was a late arrival student. I loved it, by the way. And one of the things that as well is that you can have things like snow days or sick days, right? Or if you're absent as a teacher, you can still be able to keep in contact with your students. I know of a couple of districts in Delaware that have had actually some issues with snow days where they've done their classes live using the web conferencing tool in Schoology and conducting classes that way. So that's great to hear. So those are some successes. What would be a suggestion though? Like for instance, Luann, at your level, speaking to maybe other directors that might be listening, what would be one suggestion that you would give that could be maybe something that you did that really worked out well? Maybe it was an area that, wow, this was a struggle, wish we would have thought through this some more. What would be like one suggestion that you could maybe give our audience? And if you want me to throw it over to Jessica and Jacki, I can do that to give you some.
Now, I would say we didn't actually purchase Schoology till probably late spring, and so we weren't able to get it up and implemented until the beginning of the summer. So we did bring teachers in to get curriculum and to get their resources into it. But if we had had it a semester earlier, so giving teachers time to learn how to use it, teachers has to be comfortable with the device they're using, and giving teachers time to learn how to use it and actually build out their curriculum. That would have been, I wish we'd done that a little longer.
So everyone buy right now. Don't wait anymore. That's what Luann's basically saying.
Yeah, this is a good time.
Yes.
And what about you, Jessica?
So really just kind of piggybacking off what Luann said, we really did bring in a group of core teachers, team leaders for each content area, and they spent a week, actually they didn't have to stay the whole week, but they wound up deciding to, building out their resources in Schoology so that when school started, they had things that they could share with their team. I think that was so important. And it also created an expert in every content area. So I think that was extremely, if you have teachers who want to, if you offer a week, but tell them they only have to come for a day or a half day, I promise you they're going to commit to the full week, because once they see the power of it, it's amazing. So those teachers really walked away with some meaningful content.
Were you intentional about selecting those kind of key teachers in departments, or did that happen? How did that happen?
So really, you know, that there are folks on every campus who are just technology leaders, but we really didn't necessarily select those. We selected our best teachers, the teachers who serve as, you know, cheerleaders on their team, or who always put the interest of the students above their own. So those were the teachers really that we selected. Now there were teachers who heard about it and said, "Oh, I want to be involved." So we let them come too, you know, hey, but we really wanted strong teachers.
You know, I think that's a really great point, because a lot of times when you're looking at, you know, implementing something new, you might get focused in on, you know, someone who's strong with technology, but that person who's strong in technology isn't always going to be the leader in a group of teachers. Sometimes actually they're viewed as outside of the normal row. So that's interesting. What about you, Jacki?
I would say, going back to like principal buy-in and stuff, our principals set very manageable expectations for the use of Schoology, literally to the point where he said you're going to put your syllabus on there and any important dates like quizzes, tests, that sort of stuff in the calendar. That's it. And our teachers have gone so far above and beyond that. I mean, they use it daily for assignments, for discussions, for quizzes, you name it. Like, that's just their go-to is Schoology. They do it now without even thinking. And what I really like is whenever we're doing a PLC with our teachers, and we've got student teachers, so many student teachers are coming in, and our teachers are telling the student teachers, hey, you need to be thinking about how your classroom is going to look, because it looks so different than just 5 years ago. You know, you don't necessarily have those physical textbooks. You've got a digital version. So you need to start thinking about how your class is going to look. So I love that they are already talking about how technology and your curriculum really do mesh. And so they're kind of helping us out too. And we really appreciate that. So our principal set very manageable expectations. Our teachers exceeded it, and it no doubt was due to the ease of use for Schoology.
No,
and we haven't got, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we haven't gotten to this because we're not in the second year, but I'm very excited to see how, because we have a fair amount of turnover of teachers. I'm very excited to see how those new teachers coming in are going to be able to immediately pick up the resources that other teachers have built for them for that course, and then just take off with it. So I think that'll be a great advantage of it next year.
Yeah. You know, one of the big things that when I go around talking to different districts, one of the big things I always try to mention is that, you know, using a learning management system to its full potential is wonderful, right? That's great for 8 teachers to do that. But it's far better to get all of your teachers using some of it moving forward, because the more people that are using a learning management system, the more powerful it's going to be. Because like you said, I forgot this was Jacki or Jessica, it's the go-to, right? Like that's what we do to start off creating a lesson. Like we go to Schoology, we start building out things. And by the way, it's really easy to share content that way too, right? So that one teacher is creating content, share it out. Yep. That's great.
Yeah, just put it in your resources and pull it in when you need it.
Yep, it's good to go. Well, cool. Well, I do want to get to some questions. There were some questions I tried to, audience, to try to unfold the questions in as best as possible, but this is the time where we have both on-topic questions and off-topic, so we can have a chance to talk through those things. One of the questions that came up was just a kind of general question about what's the overall kind of demographics in your school district. How would you describe your district? You mentioned free and reduced lunch as one of those components.
We're at 75% free and reduced lunch. It's about a third Hispanic, a third African American, a third Caucasian. I think that's pretty close. I think Hispanic is maybe up to 40% now. Is that what you're looking for?
I believe that was what the question was kind of asking. Just was curious about kind of the different demographics that are available, that are there. Let me see. Let me see some of these other questions. The other question was, how often are teachers kind of moving in and out of your district?
We had it from the district perspective, we had about a 23% turnover rate for the past couple of years. So a pretty high percentage.
So,
you know, and I should have, when we were talking about demographics, I should have mentioned we're also an IB high school. So we've got, and been in IB high school for, oh my goodness, how many years, ladies? 10, something like that?
1996.
Right.
1996.
So we've got that high expectation of that, the upper academic part of it too. So.
And also for our turnover, we're very close to Fort Hood, and we have a large hospital here in town. And so we're very fluid with students and staff. We're a pretty fluid campus and district.
yeah, which just heightens the whole need to have some consistency. And I know that Temple High School is enjoying that benefit with having at least something to get started with.
Yes, very
That's
much.
great. So how much access do your families actually have to technology in general? You know, one of the questions is about wireless. Like, do students often have wireless at home?
The surveys we've done indicate about 25% regularly respond they don't have wireless at home. So we've worked on several initiatives. We happen to have the Technology Learning Grant, which provides personal Wi-Fi hotspots for them. That'll end in December. We've put out some Cradle Point routers in high population, low income areas like apartment complexes to help provide some access. But that's a strong piece that we're working on, is trying to get home access for kids.
Yeah. Some of our audience members are actually really, when they heard the 23% turnover kind of rate, or, you know, retention, or however you want to put it, they were very surprised by that. And the question was, do you think that technology is driving those teachers out, or what's the...
I actually think it's brought students in, because I think we've probably increased the high school by about 75 kids this year.
Right.
Yeah. What's interesting, for those of you who don't know, Fort Hood is a military base right close by, where a lot of the families that are coming in, some of those are spouses of people who are in the military, so that they're teaching and then they're leaving. It's interesting. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Scott and White's a teaching hospital, so there's lots of residents that come in and out of Scott and White. So.
Gotcha. You know, it's interesting. I hear 23%. I was actually worked in Houston ISD for 2 years. I worked with a campus that I trained people on Schoology. In the next year, we had a 40% return rate. So 60% of them did not come back. And I tell you what, Schoology was super important to have to get everyone on the same page quickly. The more difficult your learning management system, the more difficult that process is. Some of the other questions that were asked, have you seen, Bob asked another great question, have you seen, specifically this to Jessica and Jackie, have you seen the PLCs or those professional learning networks kind of join together in Schoology, or is that still not kind of, it's on the radar, but you maybe haven't gotten there yet?
Okay, so it's really exciting, and we'll try not to like gush over it. But what has happened over the years is each of our departments functions on its own. It's its own little city. Math and English, oh my goodness, we don't mix. But now, instead of developing our PLCs specific to each content area and everybody housed in their own, we've just opened it up. And so all 4 core plus our foreign language department, they all function the same. So we're seeing some communication between folks that we wouldn't have seen. We've seen some great plans for future lessons, scaffolding that couldn't have taken place. For example, maybe an English lesson that really had a strong backbone in science. That science teacher said, hey, do you want me to come in and teach that part? Or how can we communicate and work with this better? And we thought, oh, well, we didn't even think that was going to happen. So that's been really exciting. an exciting bonus. I mean, I think that's what we keep saying. Oh, that's a bonus to Schoology. Every time we turn around, oh, it's a bonus. Because really, we just thought it's a great way to send out and receive assignments. Oh no, so much more.
Awesome.
It's strengthened them because, you know, our teachers sometimes they have a PLC period. So coming in to visit with us during that period is great. We always have a really good experience. But every once in a while when we can do a blended lesson and say, hey, your PLC is in Schoology, attack it when you want, and they're submitting things at 3 in the morning when their baby wakes up or whatever, it's really an interesting idea, and they really appreciate it because maybe that period was the only time during the day that they could have made that parent phone call. So doing some flipped PLCs, we really like that.
Interesting. And last question before I kind of let you guys go, and this is maybe to you, Luann, are you seeing the kind of the feeder schools that are going into the high school? Are they starting to get some Schoology fever, or what's happening in that situation?
Not yet, but that's been me saying, stop, we got to get one thing right first. So I really think we will move over, not next year, but the year after that, is
Gotcha.
putting some things there, and then maybe even increasing devices at that level. So.
Gotcha. So possibly moving up the one rollout and also bringing Schoology down to help with that particular initiative. Well, great. Well, Luann, Jessica, Jackie, thank you so much. This is our first webinar where we've had a trio. I jokingly call you the Temple, Texas trio. Really appreciate you guys joining us today, and thank you so much for your time. At this time, we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn off our webcams. And for those of you who are still going to stay with us, I do want to take 5 minutes to talk a little bit more about Schoology and specifically give you a little bit of a demo of the platform. So let me go ahead and get this set up real quick. With Schoology, it is, I know that we talked a lot about it. We heard a lot of the great things that are happening within Temple ISD, but we wanted to give people a chance to see a little bit more about the actual product and what that looks like. And I'm going to start off with kind of looking at Miss Alonzo today. We don't have time to go into Miss Darnell or Mr. Conrad or some of the other great stories. I'm going to start off with Miss Alonzo. This is actually what Schoology looks like. So Miss Alonzo, she's a 5th grade teacher. She teaches English and social studies. She actually has a morning block and an afternoon block within Schoology. She has the opportunity to actually have both of those sections or periods in one course. So she's not having to go to multiple courses, but just one course. And within this area, she can actually start building out content. This is our 3-column layout that's actually throughout the platform, where we have navigation over here to the left, materials in the middle, and then upcoming events and things on the right-hand side. For Miss Alonso, she always starts off today with an analogy, talking about how social studies and language arts relates to a certain object, where students are kind of tasked with coming up with an analogy. And from there, she has some of the rest of her content. And what I wanted to go into specifically were book groups. With Schoology, she has the ability to create a lot of different content that's associated with specific groups. I know one of the questions I was asked earlier that really didn't necessarily fit into our conversation today, but it's definitely something that Schoology is interested in providing, is differentiation and individualization with content. So for instance, this particular folders that we're seeing are all books, but these wouldn't be available to all the different groups. It's only available to specific users that are going through that actual reading. So if I actually click on a Braid of Lives, Native American Childhood, when I go into that, I can actually see the content that's there. Some of that content is associated with a particular group. Some of it's associated with all the various sections. Schoology provides a great place for discussion forums to happen, for collaboration around content, and for users to really share out their great learning with others. We've seen time and time again, the more ownership students have, the better their products are going to be, and the more their products are seen by others, the more ownership increases, right? It's that great circle of collaboration that happens. But this is just one example of how Schoology is being used in a classroom, and I know that Temple ISD has so many other examples that they would be able to that they could share with us too. But before I leave, I just want to let you know as a listener, if you'd like to know more about Schoology, please contact us. We want to have a chance to showcase really what's possible with Schoology and how we can really make a benefit in your educational world. Thank you so much for your time. I am going to go ahead and end the webinar. I really appreciate your thoughts. If you have any questions, feel free to email Scott at Schoology.com. Scott Smith is our Director of Marketing, who's kind of oversees this whole project, and he'll get you in contact with the right people in Temple ISD or possibly myself. So, and then for those of you who didn't have your questions answered, be looking for a follow-up email from us. We want to make sure that we engage you. With that said, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.